Hello, good evening. Welcome to Vax Facts and FAQs. We are going to go ahead and get started. I am Amiris Robertson with the National Kidney Foundation of Michigan. First, I want to talk to you about Vax Facts and Vax, or Vax Facts and FAQs. VFF for short is a virtual discussion for those affected by chronic kidney disease on how to stay healthy and get up-to-date information on how to stay healthy and get up-to-date information, on the flu and COVID-19 vaccines. This evening, we are going to be discussing a quick update on where we are with the cases, and then we will move into discussing pandemic fatigue, monitoring community levels, and other layers of protection, and vaccine safety, and then, of course, end with FAQs. I would also like to share, if you do have questions and you're in the chat or in the comment section on Facebook, you can go ahead and submit them, and I will also answer questions live for you here on Facebook. So first, I want to start with a quick pandemic update. Most noticeably is that there is an increase in cases in the United States, And so these graphics, they indicate the community levels, which we are going to be talking about more in detail a little bit later. But green is for low, yellow is for medium, and the orange color is for high. And so there are significant communities where there are higher cases, or a significant amount of communities where there are a high community level of COVID-19. And if you look on the left, we're zoomed in a little bit on Michigan, and the areas of high community levels include Southeast Michigan, North Michigan in the Lower Peninsula, and the lower side of the Upper Peninsula. And so we're going to talk today what this could mean for the protections that you participate in. But it is important to know and to monitor your community levels just for your awareness and for keeping you and your loved ones safe. So first, we're going to talk about boosters really quickly in connection with where we are in the cases. So currently, 66.5% of people in the US are fully vaccinated. However, of those who are fully vaccinated, 46.4% have received their booster and are considered up to date. Vaccination and being up to date with your vaccines and your boosters is still the best protection against infection from coronavirus and also serious complications from coronavirus, or serious complications from the infection of coronavirus. This is especially important for those eligible for a second dose, which includes the immunocompromised, which includes people with chronic kidney disease. So not only is it important for those who may not qualify for a second dose to get the first dose, but especially if you are among those who are qualified for a second dose, we encourage you to speak with your doctor on your unique eligibility and constraints, but we do want you to know that you are eligible for a second dose of, or a second booster for coronavirus. And this breaks it down a little bit, this image, to see if you are eligible for a second COVID-19 booster. So all of the qualifiers, include if you are 50 years of age or older and you got your first booster at least 4 months ago, are 12 years of age or older and are moderately or severely immunocompromised and got your first booster at least 4 months ago, or you are 18 years of age or older and got 2 doses of the Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine at least 4 months ago. And if you ever need more clarification on the eligibility criteria for the boosters, for the vaccines, because it is changing and it can be hard to keep up, you can always reach out to us at NKFM for any questions or concerns, or to get any clarification. We are more than happy to clarify that for you. Okay. So next we're going to talk about pandemic fatigue. And often this discussion on vaccines seems to divide us, but I truly believe that we can unite on this one particular subject within vaccines, which is pandemic fatigue. Simply put, pandemic fatigue is the stress and strain due to the ongoing demand of the pandemic. So the pandemic, it demands so much of our attention, our time, our energy, our mental space. And, especially in the beginning, we were paying close attention to it every day, watching the news, and living in the unknown, and we still are. And it's very stressful. But it's important to address pandemic fatigue because the pandemic, as much as we want it to be over, is not over. The cases are still increasing. There's more that we are finding out because we are living in the unknown, but we are finding more about these unknowns each day. So it's important to address the fatigue that we are all feeling so that we can remain as vigilant as possible because the risk is still there. And the big question is, how do you do that? How do you address it individually and in your communities so that you feel vigilant and that you can keep going on and keep protecting yourself and staying up to date in a way that's healthy for you? So one way, and I know this is something that we've heard a lot, but it is true, you could do more outside where there's open spaces. You can social distance. You don't have to worry about the ventilation and things like that. And if you ever feel uncomfortable, you can step away, and it's simple in that way. You can also safely connect with your communities. And this doesn't just have to be virtually. Again, you can safely connect outside. There are ways to safely connect inside if you are monitoring your community levels, and that is an option for you in your community. And then lastly, give yourself a break. And we don't mean give yourself a break from wearing a mask, social distancing, but we do mean give yourself a break from closely monitoring the news. It's okay to unplug. It's okay to just take a step back from the stress that you may be feeling from the news and updates and things like that. The information will still be there after you plug back in and you approach the updates with a fresh reset. Another way to combat fatigue is being up to date with what's going on in your community or monitoring the community levels. So the community levels is a tool that's kind of been around. It's not too new anymore, but the community levels decide the prevention measures to take based on the latest data. So as we saw with the map example from earlier, green is low, so there's a limited impact on the healthcare system and low levels of severe illness, and then medium, and then high. So high being there's a high potential for healthcare system strain and high level of severe illness. So for example, here or in Southeast Michigan, there is a high community level of COVID-19. So the recommendation for Southeast Michigan right now would to be to have a plan for rapid testing, to talk to your healthcare provider about whether you are a candidate for treatments like the oral antivirals that are available, wear a mask or respirator that provides you with greater protection, like a KN95, and consider avoiding non-essential indoor activities in public where you could be exposed. So those are the recommendations for when you're at high, and this is a good tool because if you are at low, then maybe you are able to safely connect with people indoors. Maybe you choose not to wear a mask with the greatest amount of protection, like an N95. And these are all recommendations. So if you're at low, especially if you are a part of the CKD, chronic kidney disease community, you may choose to wear a mask and you may still choose to avoid non-essential indoor activities, even if community levels are low. So again, these are recommendations, but it is still a good tool to kind of gauge the level of vigilance that you are going to take, which could ultimately help us combat the fatigue that we are feeling. We want to understand that there are multiple layers of prevention. There are personal responsibilities, but there are community or shared responsibilities to reduce the spread of the virus. And here we have an option with some cheese, but or I think it's cheese. But there's holes in these squares, and they show that with each level that you're limiting the exposure and the spread with each layer that you implement. Now, this isn't to say that you have to be practicing all of these all the time at the same time. Again, you can monitor your community levels and to see what's necessary for you individually and what may be going on in your community. But you see that you're physically distancing, so that's an option. So maybe if your community levels are low, that's kind of where you're at. You're just physically distancing. You're enjoying space outside, but then maybe if you're inside and your community levels are low to medium, you're wearing a mask. You should always be avoiding touching your face, keeping your hygiene levels high, like hand washing and things like that. And then also limit your time where you are in a crowded space. So that is also an option throughout the community levels. And then for our community responsibility, there's ventilation, there's air filtration, there's quarantine and isolation on a community level, everyone participating. It's government messaging, financial support. So those things circulating through your community and making sure you are updated and you are supported in your communities. And then there's vaccines. And there's a lot that goes into vaccines. That's making sure that you have the information that you need so you can make an informed decision. But then also staying up to date individually. It all goes into the tools that we have to utilize multiple pandemic tools and to keep our communities safe. So we're going to segue into safety now. We're going to talk about the COVID-19 vaccines and safety. So in general, overall, the message is that the COVID-19 vaccines and the boosters are safe and effective. So the COVID-19 vaccines are evaluated in thousands of participants, tens of thousands of participants in clinical trials. And the vaccines that are circulating today have met the Food and Drug Administration's scientific standards for safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing quality needed to where they were granted emergency use authorization and further levels of authorization. So over to the right, there's the facts about the vaccines. And these are also kind of misconceptions that could be happening about the vaccine. So for the first one, no corners were cut and no steps were skipped during the process of development and testing. There is a concern in the community, which is understandable, that the vaccine rollout and the vaccine development seemed that it was fast. It was fast. There was an urgent need, and that urgent need was met because there was a worldwide effort to develop these vaccines. Some of the research was also already available. For example, mRNA vaccines are vaccines that we have utilized in the past. So it wasn't like we researched a new type of vaccine in terms of how we extract the virus to develop a vaccine. Next, the safety and the efficacy of the vaccines are continuously monitored. We're also going to get into this with the FAQ at the end, but they are being monitored by the CDC and the FDA on their effectiveness and their safety. And if you do experience a adverse side effect of the vaccine, which is rare, you can report it through VAERS. All side effects that are reported are indicated on the VAERS website, even if there is not a direct correlation to the vaccine. So if something occurs and someone reports it, it does show up. And then we're going to talk about breakthrough cases. I skipped one. Long-term side effects of any vaccine are rare. So that's what I was kind of saying. So there are short-term side effects of a vaccine, and that usually includes pain at the injection site, a sore arm, maybe you might get a low fever, or you just might generally not feel so well. But these symptoms usually resolve themselves within 24 to 48 hours. Long-term side effects of any vaccine has been extremely rare. But again, there is a reporting process. And everything that is reported and general safety and efficacy is being continuously monitored. Okay, so now we're going to talk about breakthrough cases. So breakthrough cases do occur. And I definitely want to point out that it's not a new phenomenon to have a breakthrough case. No vaccine is 100% effective in preventing infection from the disease. So the flu vaccine, it's not 100% effective, but it is very effective in preventing flu infection. However, it is even more effective at preventing serious complications from the flu. And that is true for all the coronavirus vaccine as well. It's not a 100% guarantee that you're not going to get COVID, but it is close to 100%. And it is also very close to 100%. It is a very high chance that it will prevent infection, but there's an even higher chance that it will prevent long-term or serious complications from COVID-19. So breakthrough cases do occur. It's not a new phenomenon when we're talking about vaccines. And this does not mean that the vaccines do not work. The vaccines are doing their job. They are preventing cases in people. They are preventing hospitalization. They are preventing deaths. Okay, so we are at the FAQ portion of our presentation. So the first question is, why does the CDC change the vaccine recommendations or guidelines? And this is a very important question because I feel like it is a source of confusion. It's a source of irritation. For sure that the guidelines seem to change, the recommendations seem to change, but this is indicative of the CDC continuously monitoring the COVID-19 pandemic. The CDC has continued to review their isolation, quarantine, and quarantine recommendations. They review these recommendations for specific populations throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, including those with chronic kidney disease. And the recommendations take into account a lot of a lot of research and a lot of analysis that has been going on. So societal impact, the latest science and on the disease severity, when someone has been affected and how long and most people are infectious, or for how long they can spread COVID-19. And this is something that is going to continue to happen. Again, we are living in the unknown still. There is still a lot that we are coming to learn about the virus. So we have to rely on the CDC to evaluate their recommendations, not only to increase their recommendations, but also when they can decide that we can relax some recommendations. So it works to our benefit in multiple ways. The next question is, as the COVID-19 cases increase, is it still necessary to receive a primary series of a vaccine or a booster dose? And the answer is yes, it's very important, because the cases are going to fluctuate. They're going to be up and they're going to be down. But like we mentioned earlier, vaccination remains to be the best option for protection. So this is true even if you have had COVID-19 in the past. It's the best protection against contracting COVID, but also long-term complications from COVID, serious complications from COVID, hospitalizations, and death. So another FAQ is, should I delay getting my vaccine or booster until the fall? And it's a great question, because while it is true that in the summer we spend more time outside, which was one of my recommendations, is to spend more time outside, and we can easily socially distance, and thus we are reducing the chances to spread. For the chances of spreading the virus, it's important for those who are eligible to get vaccinated. And the two main reasons for that are cases are increasing currently, and staying up to date on vaccination will help provide essential protection. And then also, we've seen that COVID isn't following a seasonal cycle like the flu. And there have been waves that have occurred in these warmer months and not just the colder months. It does not align with a seasonal disease like the flu. So people who have gotten vaccinated and perhaps have received one booster have made the important personal choice to give themselves protection against severe illness. Getting the first or second booster is the next step to make sure that you are protected and that your protection remains strong over time. This is not to say that we won't need additional boosters in the future, but the FDA and the CDC will continue to monitor the efficacy and the safety of these vaccines, and how it affects immunity over time and how it wanes over time, to assess if we do need additional in the future. But right now, to wait for the fall is not necessary. You can get it now. It is recommended that you get it now. Do people need a booster dose to be considered fully vaccinated? Again, I think this is an area of confusion and frustration, not knowing what it means to be fully vaccinated. So to be fully vaccinated means a person has received all recommended doses in their primary series of COVID-19 vaccines. And I encourage you to know what that means for you. Again, if you are eligible, you may have a primary series that's 2 doses. You might have a primary series that is 3 doses. You have to know, and that is based on your medical history, but it can also be on whether you received a Pfizer or Moderna vaccine or a Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So those are things that can affect your primary series. So if you are a part of the chronic kidney disease community, then you may have a 3-dose primary series. And then up to date is another term. So you can be fully vaccinated, but then you can also be up to date on your vaccines, which means you have received all recommended doses in your primary series of COVID-19 vaccines, and you have gotten your boosters when eligible. So if you are fully vaccinated and you have gotten your booster, then you are considered to be up to date on your vaccines. And so if you are someone who is immunocompromised, you would be considered up to date if you completed your primary series and also your 2 booster doses. So again, it's dependent on a few factors, but really, if you are fully vaccinated, if you have completed your primary series, but we encourage you to be up to date on your vaccines, but by also making sure you got your booster doses that you are eligible for. All right, so with that, we are at the end of our presentation, and I want to thank you for sticking around and listening and getting your questions answered. And I hope this is helpful. If you ever have more questions or you have feedback on the presentations, we encourage you to email us at reach@nkfm.org or visit nkfm.org to see more about what we have to offer, but also to learn more about these presentations. If you are interested in our next live stream, you can register at nkfm.org/COVID-19. This page is also our place where you can get information on COVID-19. But again, if you ever have any questions about vaccines, what you're eligible for currently, if you have some concerns, we are open to chatting with you and getting your questions answered or directing you to the best place to get your answers. So thank you and have a great rest of your day. And we will be back Friday at noon to stream again. Thank you.